All right, welcome to another Financial Fridays with Sadie's and Equitable. Today's topic is job and career changes considerations. And Sadie's is very excited to offer these sessions in cooperation with our corporate partner, Equitable Advisors. Joining us today from Equitable is Kelly DeMay. Thanks for being here, Kelly. And just a reminder, everyone, the session is being recorded. We will save questions until the end of the presentation. Feel free to add them to the chat or the Q&A section of the webinar. And just a reminder, these Q&A questions, it's best to have general questions. Please know the Equitable team is available at any time to answer your personal questions. You can find contact information for your reps at saneys.org. And I will turn it over to you, Kelly.
Thanks, PH. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to get started. Okay, so today we're going to talk about, if you're at this stage and you're thinking about maybe changing careers, changing districts. I intentionally do this presentation in May because I find that it's sometimes this time of the year where people say internally, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in September, but I know it's not going to be this. And I feel pretty confident that this time of year that happens because I know that that's what happened to me. I was a teacher, and I know that I got to the end of April, early May, and I said to myself, I don't know what I'm going to do come September, but it's not going to be this anymore. So, you just kind of go through the motions and you get to the point where there's some clarity there. And obviously making that decision on making that move can have a number of different factors that you've got to weigh out depending on where you are in your life and career. And we're going to talk through some of those items today. We have some polls today. Obviously, all the polls are anonymous, so keep that in mind as we go through things. Before we get started, though, I'm going to give you my disclosure. This just indicates that I'm not a tax professional or a tax preparer. In part of our conversations, we might talk about tax matters, but if you have specific tax questions, you should talk to your CPA or tax preparer about that. Now, let's say you have specific questions as we're going through this. Please go ahead and snap that QR code, and that will direct you to the email saneysmembers@equitable.com. And that will come directly to myself. And if you'd like to schedule a confidential, complimentary discussion on talking through this and how to weigh things out, please by all means reach out to me. This is part of your Saneys member benefits. There's no cost or fee for us having this discussion. And quite frankly, in some way, shape, or form, I have this discussion with Saneys members on a weekly basis. You are not alone, though certainly it can feel very lonely sometimes when you're in this space. So, poll number one, you are here because, and I'm just going to have you answer, because you're just here for information, just in case you're thinking about doing something different. You're seriously consider doing something different, either going to a different job or a different district. You're considering, phoning it in and going to a different career altogether, or you're asking for a friend. Just helps me to get some information so that way I can gear my part of the presentation specific to a little bit more specific to the folks who are on the call. Okay, pretty evenly split. Nobody's here for a friend. That's good to know. Good to know. All right, so nice mix, all things considered. Thank you for responding. For the 6 you responded, the other 6, I'm going to assume that you're here for a friend. Okay, so that being said, why do you think people are looking at other careers or other units? Like, what do you think the main reason is? Like, in your opinion, why do you think people are looking at other options? What is the main reason for them to be thinking, I want to do or go somewhere else? What are your guesses? Please write them in the chat. Do you think it's a financial motivation, a passion, a relocation? Like, what do you think the main motivations are? Retirement, burnout, bureaucracy, leadership, job challenges, mobility and challenges, compensation, ability to move up a financial ladder or maybe lack thereof. Okay, got it. One thing, and I hope you will appreciate, and I hope I could say this respectfully. One thing, I meet with people all day, every day of my life, and people will say to me, Kelly, I just want to get to the next level. I want to get to the next level of things. I want to be, you know, maybe if I'm a teacher, an assistant principal, or a principal, and I want to be a principal, or if I'm a civil service person, I want to move up the next rung of that ladder. And I say to them, listen, everybody's on a hamster wheel. I am, you are, they are. You gotta find the good in your current hamster wheel and just know that the next hamster wheel is still a hamster wheel. It might be a bigger hamster wheel, but it's still a hamster wheel. And you might like that one better. It might have some new features, might have like a little bit of a new pace or a new color to that hamster wheel, but it's a hamster wheel nonetheless. So it's interesting. Sometimes people think that like the grass is greener in front of that other house, but it's just a different house. You know what I mean? So something that we work through a good amount. Okay. So top six reasons from what I see is certainly better pay. So people say, I wanted the opportunity to make more money and I can see what my trajectory is where I am one way or the other. And there's limitations there. Commuting. Now I run into this a lot with my Long Island people. So if you're on from Long Island, no one should ever complain about commuting because of the folks who are in Long Island and my region 1 and region 2 folks. Many of the Long Island people who had a 30 or 45-minute commute 10 years ago now have a 2 to 2.5 hour commute for the same distance of a commute. It's a huge issue in working with my region 1 and region 2 people. So managing that part of things where they're spending literally 3+ hours a day in the car. I'm not making that up, where they were not doing that just 10 years ago is a big challenge. You want more impressive of a role. You like the idea of moving up. You want more responsibility. Funny, not funny. I've got friends. Thankfully, I've got some friends, and they say, Kelly, I want to move up. I want the bigger office, and I want the bigger title, and I've put my time in, and I've worked really hard. And I say, listen, we got to be real clear. When you move up, you get more of everything. You get more of the things you want, and you get more of the things you don't want. So when you move up for that more impressive role, you get maybe more pay or more title or more of a bigger office. And you also get more hours worked and more responsibility and more ownership and more blame. You get all the things you want and all the things you don't want. Sometimes people say to me like, well, I think I want like more pay and like more PTO. And it's like, what organization is going to promote you to give you more time off? That's a bad model. No organization, school, for profit, non for it doesn't matter. Nobody's doing that. You got to accept that you're going to own all the things. Maybe you're in a toxic work environment and you say, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I get that. Certainly, working work environments, we've all probably been there at some point in time. Or maybe you just say, I just don't want to do this demanding of a schedule. I've got other priorities in my life. And maybe you say, I've just got other passions. All these are common reasons why people are looking to make some type of change from a unit or a career vision. So my next poll is this, and I've only got 2 or 3 polls. So main reason you're considering the change. So what's your number one thing? Is it better pay? Is it a commuting issue for my region 1 or region 2s? Is it that role or the resume? Is it the work environment? Is it the schedule demand, passion, or something else? So why are you specifically looking to jump ship? Anonymously, of course. Okay. Oddly enough, it's not better pay. toxic work environment, demanding schedule, other reasons. So, interestingly enough, people aren't chasing the paycheck, which is it is interesting. So, first and foremost, financial considerations, and I'm going to unshare my screen because I'm going to talk through this. So, when I talk to people about this, and they're talking about first leaving education. So, I'm going to start there where you're like, I'm done with education. And I understand that. After I had taught for a few years, I recognized that being an educator in the state of New York was such an amazing blessing and such a good thing. And I was a horrible fit for the model and the system. The system is a great model, it's a great system. I was a bad fit for it, and I knew that. It wasn't the system that was the problem, it was Kelly DeMay that was the problem. And that was all right. I accepted that. But when I meet with somebody who say, I think I need to jump ship on education, I say, before you jump ship on education and you burn the education bridge, because once you burn that bridge, it's a tough one to come back to. Very rarely do people come back. I'll often say, are you sure it's education or do you think it might be your school district? And sometimes they'll say, I'm not really sure. I think it's education though. And I say, before you just cut the cord on education, try switching school districts for just a year to see. Because what I found about 50% of the time, not all the time, but about half, sometimes people switch school districts and say, I didn't realize it. I was unhappy where I was and I wasn't in a good situation. I just didn't realize it. And once I got to a new situation, it was great. I just didn't know it when I was in the environment. So if you're one of those people thinking, I need to leave education, before you cut the cord on education, I really want you to think about, is this an education issue or is this maybe a school district issue? Particularly where I find this is problematic, quite frankly, is sometimes in smaller school districts. And I say that because in smaller school districts, sometimes people find themselves taking on many different roles and wearing a lot of different hats. Being the yes person, like all of a sudden it's like I'll meet with somebody and I'm like, oh, what, like, tell me about your day to day. And they list 27 different roles that they have. And it's like, no wonder why you don't like your job. You have 27 jobs. It's like, how did this happen? Most people don't do all those things. Like, that's not a normal thing, but they don't know it's not normal because that's all they know. That's their normal. So, that's the first thing I'm going to challenge you on. Is this an education issue or is this a school district issue? Because education in the state of New York is a good model. You want to be careful about cutting the cord on that model, that it might not be a school district issue, because sometimes it's just a district issue. Sometimes, not all the time. And then sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's a district issue and it's a school district issue, and the problem is a bigger problem. I I was pretty confident my problem was a bigger problem. I knew who I was and what I wanted, and I knew that the problem in that wasn't my district. That was me. I wanted something that education in the state of New York was never going to be. Um, I wanted to be rewarded if I did a good job and worked really hard. I wanted to make more money. Or if I wasn't as successful, I wanted to make less money. I wanted to accept that. That's not what being an educator in the state of New York is about. That's okay. Wasn't going to be about that if I moved districts. So I knew my problem was a different problem. You got to really think about the problem and determine if you got into a different environment, might that change the problem? So I'm going to plant that seed there first. The next thing I want you to think about is knowing your numbers. So oftentimes people will email me and they're like, Kelly, I think I'm going to go into private practice. I think I'm really I feel really good about, maybe I have a counseling degree or I have a degree in psychology and I can go into private practice. And I literally have a templated email of all the things I need them to consider and think through before they just think they're going to go to private practice, because sometimes they think that that's an easy transition and there's a lot more to going and owning your own business than just that. Like saving for retirement. Um, I realize, you've got a great pension in New York. You all know that as well. I also realize being a tier 6 member isn't quite as good as being a tier 4 or a tier 5 member. I get that as well. But being a tier 6 member is still a good gig. Now, you can still leave education and have a great retirement, but you got to be prepared to all of a sudden you have to hoof away a lot more money to be able to retire at age 63, because in corporate America, retiring at age 63 is really uncommon. I'm going to repeat that. Outside of being an educator, retiring at 63 is very uncommon. Most people do not do that. They retire after that because it's too expensive to retire that early. So, where you might think age 63 seems like a million years away right now, and I'm really unhappy, understand that by going to another career, you're probably most definitely going to have to work longer than that by a lot, by a lot. So you need to be very direct with that. You're going to have to save a lot more. That's just the truth. And you're going to have to be aware that that vesting period is going to take longer. So to be vested in these retirement accounts, meaning like how long you're going to have to work places in order to be eligible to take the company money, it's going to take longer than yet. With that, when it comes to your tier of the pension system, every tier is a different break point. So as a tier 4 member, the big break point is 20 years. At tier 5, it's 25 years. And at tier 6, it's 20 years. So you need to be aware of that break point, because if you were to go to like 19 years versus 20 years or something along those lines, it's a very dramatic difference if you were to just get one more year. So you got to evaluate how many years you are in now and how many years are you closer to that break point, because the delta in difference in what you're going to get is significant. You just got to make an informed decision about what that looks like. And then could you change roles to help you get the service credits that you need? Because service credits are really the name of the game. And certainly public service loan forgiveness. Are you working towards getting some type of loan forgiveness on public service loan forgiveness? I think that that's also a big factor in all of this. Thank you for asking what's a break point. So a question came up, what's a break point? As a New York State pension employee, if you work a certain number of years, the state of New York says, as a tier 4 member, you've now worked 20 years. You've been a loyal employee to us for 20 years, and now we're going to go back and retroactively give you an additional credit for every year that you've worked. So they're going to give you a boost or additional credit for being an employee that long. So it's a break point, meaning the difference as a tier 4 member between working 19 years versus 20 years is you get about an additional 9% extra money in your pension benefit in retirement. Big deal. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Think about when was the last time you got a 9% raise? Not very frequently. As a tier 5 member, that break point comes at 25 years. As a tier 6 member, it comes at 20 years. So based on your tier, this time where the state of New York gives you these credits for being a loyal employee varies, so it's different from person to person. Okay, probably the biggest factor is health insurance. So first and foremost, are you on a family plan? Do you carry the benefits, or is that not a factor? Maybe you're on a spouse plan. You don't have to worry about those benefits. Health insurance is a really big deal. Not only health insurance now, but health insurance in the future. Because oftentimes in order to get the health insurance benefits in retirement, should your district offer that, because health insurance in retirement is not based on state benefits like the pension, it's district to district. So sometimes I'll meet with somebody and they're like, Kelly, I'm 51. I've got 4 years left. This other really good job came up closer to where I live. I'm going to jump ship, go to the new district. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. You cannot do that, because if you do that, you're going to leave health insurance benefits in retirement from your current employer. You're going to throw that away. And either you're now not going to get any health insurance benefits from retirement, or you're going to have to work longer to get those benefits because you start this new clock all over again at a new district on a new contract who does not care at all about how you worked in another district and you should get health insurance. Nope, it's not relevant. Um, so this is a big factor. And this is not a factor where it's like, oh, well, I talked to the superintendent or my friend and they told me it was good. No, you have to read through that contract with a fine-tooth comb. You need your financial advisor to read through that contract with a fine-tooth comb. You need the Saney's attorney to read through that contract with a fine-tooth comb and make sure you fully understand what you're giving up and what you're getting and the cost of that. It is a humongous factor. It is not even close to an apples to apples per district. It's not even close to an apples per apples in the district, let alone across the districts. So I would say this is the biggest consideration is the health insurance piece, both well employed, but especially in retirement. One of the toughest conversations I have to have with people is I'll meet with them and do some planning and they'll say like, well, I'll get health insurance. And I'm like, well, you've only been in this district for 3 years. You don't get health insurance from retirement. And they're like, oh, yes, I do. And I'm like, no, you don't. I know your contract really well, and I don't mean to be a jerk, but unless you have some super special side deal and potentially some special pictures of somebody that you are holding hostage, you're not getting health insurance in retirement. And they're like, well, someone told me that I probably would. And it's like, listen, we can argue all day about this. You're not getting health insurance, nor is your family. You're going to the open marketplace where your premiums are $19,000 a year without any coverage kicking in. This is not a debate. You have to be informed. So I hope I've like beat this horse enough. I don't mean to like get on my pedestal with this, but like people make really uninformed decisions here and they go off way too much hearsay without really knowing what they're doing, and it's scary. You've got to know what you're doing before you pull the ripcord on this. So please talk to somebody who really actually knows your contract for you, not what they think you might get maybe. It's not good enough. It's way too big of a delta. And then, like I've been talking about, the health insurance offerings in retirement, way different. That's the really significant scenario. If you come to me and say, Kelly, I'm at XYZ district now, I'm thinking about going to ABC district, could you let me know your thoughts? I'll go through your contracts and I'll give you my assessment of that. There's no cost to that. I'd be happy to give that analysis for you. It's not hard for me to do, but you've got to be really informed. Because typically you need to work at a school district for a certain length of time. Some districts it's 10 years, most it's 20 years in order to get that health insurance benefit in retirement. So if you're 50 and you only have 5 or 6 years into retirement and you go to another district, you might be walking away from any type of health insurance in retirement. Now, oftentimes I'll also hear people say to me like, well, Kelly, I might be a superintendent and like then I'll get free health insurance. It's a different type of debate, quite frankly. There's some other risks there. That's a different conversation altogether. But there's some more flexibility there, but there is also more risks there. So I just want to be clear on this. This is a really big factor. Do not assume what you've got one place is what you're going to get anywhere else. That's guaranteed to not be the case, actually. So where do you get started? You got to know where you stand today. It's kind of like where do you get started with anything else? You got to like look at your numbers and know what is your current state of the union. What's your income now? How much money do you need to live today to pay your bills? And how much money are you going to need in the future? That's what drives the bus. And then how is a new role going to affect your ability to reach those goals? Every single decision we make in life has a pro, a con, and a cost. Far be it from anybody to tell you what the pro, con, and cost is. You have to weigh that out for yourself, but there's never going to be a perfect answer. You're always going to give up something. You're always going to get something too. But you've got to determine if what you're going to give up is going to be worth what you're going to get. Because I might have to say to you, hey, you're going to get the career of your dreams, but then you got to work for 12 more years. Is that worth it to you? I don't live your life. You live your life. I don't go to your job every day. You go to your job every day. What's worth it to you? The other thing I'm going to caution you about is like the concept when people say like, I just don't like my boss. I can't work with them anymore. Your boss will change. And just because you go to a new district or a new employer doesn't mean you're going to like your boss there either. That's a different discussion. I'm not saying you shouldn't change because of a boss problem. I am saying just be aware that changing doesn't always fix that issue. So you got to start with the current state of the union. What do I have? Where do I stand? What is my cash flow, my retirement accounts, my checking, my savings, my liabilities? What are my bills? That's where you start. You got to know your financials. This cannot be a pipe dream. You've got too much weighing on this for it to be a pipe dream. You got to know the real nitty gritty numbers. Sometimes people will say to me, and they're like, Kelly, like, can you just run some hypotheticals? And it's like, no, because like your bills every month aren't really a hypothetical. Like your mortgage is your mortgage, and they do not care if you have a job or not. Like the same mortgage payment is coming due. So you really have to be really honest with yourself about looking at your numbers and evaluating what is in reasonableness of what you're able to do. Then you got to weigh out those pros, cons, and costs and some different analysis. And then say, okay, if you were to make some changes, what do you need to adjust accordingly? So my last poll, after some of these considerations we've talked about, how do you feel? Are you like, okay, this makes me feel better, what she's talking about? Are you thinking, I think I need to do some more research? Or are you like, I might need some help thinking this through? Okay, let's see. Okay, great. Appreciate that. So you need help crunching the numbers? Please, by all means, go to that QR code, send me an email. We will crunch the numbers for you. We'll give you guidance. I will tell you it's not my life. I switched my job. It was the best thing I ever did in my entire life. People ask me all the time, do you wish you stayed in education? No, I do not. Makes me appreciate all of what you do because I couldn't do it. I gave up a lot of good things and I work really hard. I do work a lot more hours, but I don't mind that. That was the part of the cost I took on. So I'm someone who I can say like the best thing I ever did was change my career. But I also took ownership of the cost. So you want help or need help, please reach out to me. Luke and I would be happy to meet with you, give you some guidance. It's a confidential discussion. We meet with people all the time. We can give you the skinny on maybe how to best handle the circumstances. It's a complimentary part of your Saney's membership, even though you might not be a Saney's member for all that long. And with that, just know you're not alone. Like this can be very lonely when you're going through it because it's like, oh my God, I've got a degree in education. How on earth am I going to do something else? Like you've got so many transferable skill sets. You could do so much else, so much else. But you got to know how and where to transfer those skill sets to. So it's not a function of like, is there another thing for me? There are. It's about looking at your big picture finances to determine that. For those of you who are considering maybe going like the entrepreneurial route, just be aware of that, like from a cost perspective. There's a lot of different expenses associated with that from a marketing perspective. And the ultimate question of where are clients going to come from? That is the most important question. So, can also get into that with all of you as well if you'd like to talk about it. But with that, we're at 12:30. As always, if you need something, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself.